What's up, crew? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. Today we're going to take a look at a few combos you can do with this deck profile that I posted a few days prior. The Hungry Burger, Nouvelles deck profile. If you have not seen the in-depth explanation and you're curious, it's on this channel. It's the video just before this one, so it should be easy to find. I'll link it down below too, just in case. Otherwise, the list is right here. If you don't want to hear me explain it all, there you go. And we'll get right into these combos here. Alright, so for number one, we're going to go 2-card combo. We're opening the Confectionery Contest and the Diviner of the Herald. They're both not searchable by anything in the deck. They're both hard draws, so a little bit unlikely. But you also have a ton of draw power in this deck, and that's something that I think needs to be touched on here. Is as far as comboing goes, the deck is so reliant on RNG, and it pushes through that RNG reliance by just having a ton of draw power and search for like other stuff. So getting like the key pieces that really make combos explosive is a little bit more rare, but you can thin the deck by a lot after a turn or two just by using all of the in-archetype searching and draw power. So with that in mind, the first two combos are going to be kind of similar. They're both going to use these two cards, but typically you're not opening like a 1 or 2 card combo like you would with like a really good meta deck. You're going to open hopefully 1 or 2 good cards like these, and then the other 3 cards in that hand are going to be what allows you to create your big board. So just with these 2 cards, we can go 2 negates, or 2 interruptions rather, as well as your field spell and a little bit of draw setup, and I'll show you that one right now. So we'll start this off with a normal summoning of Diviner. Diviner's effect's going to activate. We're going to dump the Synchro monster, the Herald of the Arclight. Herald's effect is going to activate. We'll use that in order to search for the level 5. At this point, we'll use the Quick Play spell. You could use it at any point. I suppose you could chain it early on if you wanted, but we're going to select our main deck Pendulum and our extra deck Pendulum. We are going to get the main deck Pendulum to our side. They're going to get the extra deck Pendulum to their side, and it needs to be in attack mode in order to set up your interruptions, so make sure you're doing that. Then we get the search off of our Pendulum to search a recipe or a level 1 ritual. We're going to search the recipe. In this instance, it doesn't really matter which one you search. I would still just take the fish recipe, because if you happen to have another copy of fish recipe in the level 1 guy, you're able to search the other one, which you'll see in the next combo. But anyway, we're going to activate the recipe card we searched. We're going to summon the level 5 by getting rid of the Diviner. Diviner's effect is going to activate, as well as Balamunier's. The chain link order, I suppose, doesn't really matter, just whatever you feel like. So the Diviner's effect is going to summon our Cyber Petite Angel. The Balamunier's effect is going to search our at table, the field spell. And then the Cyber Petite Angel is going to search a Benton from our deck, put it in the hand. So now we're going to activate the at table. At table is going to be able to search a recipe card from our deck. We're going to take the counter trap, because the end board will allow you to meet the activation requirements for this, and it's a pretty good counter trap, all things considered. We're then going to use the Balamunier's effect. We're going to tribute off the fusion monster we gave them to summon our Bale Girl. And we could pass the board right here, and you would have 2 interruptions. So this is not a quick effect because you summoned it with a ritual spell. Otherwise, we would pass the turn with just this guy on board and maybe make some link monsters. And you still have that option here. So if you wanted to, you could link these 2 away into an IP, and then you would have 3 interruptions at that point. You would be able to IP link away the Pendulum or whatever monster you left on board into the Nightmare Unicorn, and then you have that discard to bounce. You also have the Bale Grill effect, which is a quick play effect, which would allow you to tribute an attack position monster your opponent controls in order to summon a Hungry Burger. And then that Hungry Burger is more or less just going to be link fodder or tribute fodder on your next turn. And then you have the Chef's Special Recipe, which can negate a Spell Trap or Monster Effects activation. Also in this setup, if you were to use the Chef's Special Recipe before you use Bale Grill's effect, so you use this to negate something and put it in the graveyard, and then they keep trying to play and you activate the Bale Grill effect, tribute one of their monsters, and special summon the Hungry Burger, the secondary effect of Chef's Special Recipe will then allow you to banish this out of your graveyard and then tribute as many monsters as your opponent controls off of the summon of Hungry Burger. So it's a full board wipe. But that instance is a little bit more up to your opponent. Depending on what you have to interrupt, you might need to use this effect before this effect, though this effect negates pretty much anything you would probably need to negate. So if you can, use this first, use this second, and get that Hungry Burger board wipe. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to assume that we open the same 2 cards, but one of your other 3 cards happen to be the level 1. What this does is it allows you to have pretty much the same board you set up, but it also gives you an additional interrupt as well as a little bit more board interaction. So the combo is going to start the same way here. We'll activate whichever one first. We'll go with the quick play spell first. Same deal. We want the main deck one on our side. We want the fusion one in attack mode on their side, and we want our search. So this search, now because we have the level 1, we really want it to be the fish recipe, because when you use it to summon the level 1 guy, it'll just search the other one on its own, which we'll do right now. We're going to summon our level 1. You can put it in whatever mode you want, and the reason for that is because we're going to be able to put it in defense mode, and we're most likely just going to link it away. So now we have 2 effects to activate. The first one is an Excavate 5 and add a Nouvelles. The other one lets you put the Pendulum monster back in the Pendulum zone. We'll use both of them. And for the sake of this combo, we're not going to use whatever you happen to search. It's just an additional plus. So you can search whatever. We'll grab the level 3. And then our Pendulum monster will go back in the Pendulum zone. So now this matters depending on what else you draw, because you can use this effect to change something to defense mode and then summon this. It doesn't get its search effect again, but it is an additional body on board to ritual summon with or link summon with. But for now, we're going to use this diviner. We're going to normal summon. We're going to activate that diviner effect. We're going to dump the Herald of the Arc Light, and we're going to search the level 3. So like I said, we're going to pretend like this one isn't here, or one of them isn't here, you know, whatever, because we searched it off of the Buerla base, and there's no saying whether or not you're actually going to get that. If you do get that, this search can be whatever you want it to be, I suppose. But for this instance, assume this is a blank Nouvelles card that we can't use. We're then going to use our extra recipe card to summon the level 3 we searched, and this will give us a draw as well as an additional search. So we got our draw off of the level 3 summon effect, and we've got our diviner that's going to special summon the Petite Cyber Angel. We'll get our draw. Once again, pretend like that doesn't exist, whatever that ended up being. The Petite Cyber Angel will then search a Benton. So now right here, you would have a Benton plus 2, we'll say 2 blank cards in your hand, as well as this board setup. So we have a couple different options here. We want to trigger this effect to summon the level 5 out of the deck. So what you can do is use this to target one of your monsters, change its battle position to summon it, and it gives you that extra body on board for link or ritual summoning, at which point you would use the effect of the level 3. It could be the 1 or the 3, but we need it to be the 3 to summon the 5. The 1 can only summon the 3, which we no longer have use for. So we're going to use this effect. We're going to target 1. We're going to use the 3's effect, and in this instance, we're going to tribute the fusion monster we gave them, as well as our own 3, in order to summon the 5. Now, it doesn't matter that we tributed their monster because we're trying to set up interrupts on their turn in this instance. Our level 5 is going to search our at table again. We're going to activate our at table to get an additional recipe search. So now, because we have these, if you're playing in a game, obviously, you could search one of your ritual spells to summon whatever you happen to search. For now, I like the counter trap because we're still set up to use it, just like that previous combo. And now in this instance, we have a draw, which we had in the previous one, and I just didn't mention it, so we'll just do it. We search the Benton, so it is target for at table to put it on the bottom of the deck and give you a draw, so it lets you kind of reload your hand a little bit. You have an additional draw in the end phase, so you can put back a recipe spell from your or a recipe card. It doesn't have to be a spell from your graveyard, as well as another card to draw one. We're gonna leave the Pueltis. Whatever else you want to put back. So whichever one you want. Maybe the recipe plus one of these two is probably your best bet. You want this in the graveyard for its attack boost effect. So in the end phase, we'll put back one of the recipes plus the diviner or the herald. It doesn't really matter which one you put back. That's up to you. And the reason we want this in the graveyard is because off of this board, we can then summon our Dynamondo. And then a Dynamondo's effect can put our Cyber Petite Angel back, as well as the level 1. So now we've reloaded that Cyber Petite Angel to use a second diviner on the next turn, and whenever you happen to come across one, which would then allow you to search another Benton and keep your at table alive, or be tribute fodder to search a new diviner, or whatever the case may be. You also have 3 interrupts here on the board between the Balamuniere, which is now a quick effect because it was summoned off of the effect of a Nouvelles monster. So as soon as they summon something, you can quick effect, tribute it, and you get to summon your Baelgrill. Baelgrill's effect is also a quick effect, so now Baelgrill's on the board. If they summon something else, you can tribute it to summon your Hungry Burger from your hand, and you have this interrupt in the back row. It's a negate of a spell, trap, or monster effect, as well as that board wipe that we mentioned with Hungry Burger previously, depending on the order in which you use everything. Now on top of that, we also have Dynamondo's effect to tribute itself to summon a ritual out of your graveyard. So you could tribute it to then summon your level 3, and then you get an additional draw that turn. So essentially you would be reloading your hand, like assuming this wasn't what you drew into off of these other searches, because this is an unshuffled deck just for the sake of showing you combos. These two would probably not be in your hand just because they're one-ofs, but if they are, it doesn't really change anything. You can still summon them. If they aren't, it means on your opponent's turn, at the end of your opponent's turn, you've got 3 interrupts as well as 4 new cards in your hand since the start of your first turn. So it's a pretty decent board setup. And then for the last one here, we're just going to do a quick test hand, only because the combos in this deck don't really exist. Like I said a couple of times now, it's mostly about RNG. It's mostly about putting as many resources in your hand as possible. So we've got a test hand here. We're going to see what we can build out of it. We're looking for a few interrupts. Maybe if we can get that Nephthys plus an interrupt, that would be ideal, and we'll see where this ends up. So in this hand here, we've got a whole lot of searches. We got the pre-prep, the table, the prep, the diviner, and then we've got 1 ritual spell. So this is actually a pretty nutty hand. I think we'll start with this because it's the one that's most likely to have its ability to activate be broken. We'll grab a fish recipe, we'll grab the level 1. So now we're at a 6-card hand. We could search another recipe. I don't think we need it just yet. I think instead we're going to go with the diviner normal summon. We're going to get the diviner to activate its effect. We're going to dump the Herald of the Arclight. We're going to get the Arclight effect to search. And I think right here we're going to grab the 3. We have so much additional search here that we'll be able to get to this 5, I believe, fairly easily. And so we're going to grab that level 3. And then what you do here is kind of up to you, the order in which you want to do it. We're going to summon this level 3 by using the Diviner of the Herald. In that case, we get the draw, and we get the special summon of Cyber Petite Angel, and then the Cyber Petite Angel will then search the vent into our hand. Now you do have 2 more searches in the hand between the at table, which can search a recipe card, which we can just force the search of our other recipe ritual spell by using this to summon this. Plus you have the prep, which at this point is not live because we haven't used a ritual spell, so you would get the search for the ritual monster, but you wouldn't get the spell out of the grave, and we really want to get that spell out of the grave. So you could use the table to grab the trap. I think we'd rather build the board versus grab the trap at this point, and so I think we're just going to summon that ritual monster first. We're going to make the Poeltis with the diviner. Chain links here don't matter. We'll go chain link 1 Poeltis, we'll go chain link 2 the diviner. Diviner's going to summon the Cyber Petite Angel. Poeltis will give us that draw 1. Cyber Petite Angel will give us that search for Benton. Alright, so now our search cards are both live. We have a ritual spell in the grave that we can get back off of the prep. And then we could use this here to search the trap if we want, because we have 1 fish recipe in hand. If we use it to summon the Boela base using the Cyber Petite Angel, it'll give us the meat recipe from our deck. And when we use the Preparation of Rites, it'll give us the fish recipe out of our graveyard. So then we would still have 2 more ritual spells in hand to keep pushing. And I think that's probably a good bet. We can thin the deck a little bit before we get that Excavate 5. So we'll grab the counter trap. And then we're going to go ahead and summon our Boela base using the Cyber Petite Angel. So Boela base will get our Excavate 5, and we will get our meat recipe out of the deck off of the fish recipe effect. And then what you get here could be good, could be terrible. We got a 3, and that's it. We get the 3, so that's all we're getting. And so now here I think we're getting to the point where we can probably push for that Link 3 plus an interrupt or 2. And if we can get the Boela base on board off of the effect of one of these guys, you would have 2 interrupts plus the Nepenthes Link monster. And so I think that's what we're going to try to go for. So I think our best bet here is going to be to summon the level 3 in our hand. We'll use the Benton out of our hand to summon it, and we'll use that Benton effect to search. So now we're probably going to grab the level 1 off of the prep. So with that in mind, we just want to grab something that makes for good fodder. So we're just going to grab that Sakitama because we can use it twice. The prep we're going to activate, and we're going to get that level 1 like I had mentioned. And then we're also going to get a ritual spell out of the graveyard. So we'll grab the fish recipe. And then we can use that fish recipe to summon the Boela base, and we'll use the Sakitama in hand. Because it is free, Sakitama will let us get it back. The fish recipe is also not once per turn, so we get the meat recipe back in hand. So now we have another ritual spell, another monster to use as fodder. And now here we actually do have 3 interrupts plus Nepenthes. So this trap card, the staff recipe, which we'll set when activated, can target a monster on your field to copy it and make a token with 50 attack and defense, and then it's got the same level, but it does target. So essentially what I'm saying is we'll set both traps. You can link summon into your Sacred Flame, just leave one of the level 3s on board, and so now we've got the full effects: can't be destroyed by battle or card effect, and can't be targeted. And then when you pass turn, so we'll see if it'll lets us do this here. We got our extra draw here, so what you get back, we'll grab 1 and 2, the fish recipe and the boiler base, just because that pre-prep can get that search again. And then we'll pass turn here. So now in this instance, whenever they activate something, you can activate this, use the effect to target the Pueltis. Pueltis will then use its own effect, tribute itself plus something else on the board, so you'd probably wait for something to be on the board, and it'll summon Boiler Base. Boiler Base's effect then becomes a quick effect, so here you can read that. When it gets summoned off of the effect of another Nouvelles monster, it gets its effect to be a quick effect. So now you have that additional interrupt. And then once you use that effect, it'll summon the Bale Grill. Bale Grill's effect is a quick effect on its own, so then you contribute another face-up attack position monster your opponent controls to summon a Hungry Burger. And then you also still have this trap in the back row that's very much so live because we have all of these ritual monsters on the board at that point. So actually that's 4 interrupts. You have a monster that's going to be very hard to remove. You have your field spell on board, so it's going to keep generating draw power for you. You have the interrupt here because it's going to tribute itself plus whatever else you're attributing on your opponent's side of the field, hopefully, to summon the Boiler Base. The Boiler Base is going to tribute something else in order to summon the Bale Grill, and the Bale Grill is going to tribute something else in order to summon the Hungry Burger, and then you have that Chef's Special Recipe, which is just an in-archetype Solemn. Plus, if you use it prior to using the Bale Grill effect to summon the Hungry Burger, it's a board wipe. So at that point, you've pretty much set up a very, very difficult board for your opponent to play through, even though it only looks like 2 monsters and 2 back row and a field spell. It doesn't look like much. As long as you don't get shut down by hand traps or something, it definitely will stop a turn. And so there you go, a nice solid opening hand there, and hopefully that can demonstrate a little bit for what this deck can do. And we'll call that good for this one. I just wanted to show a little bit how the deck functions, just because it is a very strange deck. I do think there's some tweaking to be done here. This thing does come in handy, as you saw in that previous test hand that we just did, just because it forces a target on your opponent's turn. It's also really not that great. I thought it was good just because it gives you tokens on board that can be used to ritual summon, but that's very rarely something you need, and I really end up just using it to force that target, but you could replace that with something else that targets that's just better. I also don't think you need 2 Sakitama. We could probably put this down to 1 and play an additional Nouvelles monster just so the Excavate off of Boiler Base is a little bit more live, because this is a monster you're going to summon pretty much every turn, and so you want that to be as live as possible. Outside of that, I think a lot of this stuff is super necessary at the ratios you have, the 3, the 3, the 3, 3, 3, 3, and then the 3 searchers of each. All of that I think you absolutely have to have, because the deck becomes incredibly inconsistent as soon as you start losing all of that search power. But let me know what you think. I know I've seen people mixing this with Mekenko. It could be done. It's probably a little bit better that way, but I wanted to try to build it as pure as possible first, just because that tends to be the way I enjoy deck building a little bit more. But if you have opinions on that, let me know down below. If you're testing anything out this week, I hope it goes great for you. Happy deck building. Good luck at locals. Good luck at whatever tournaments you got coming up. And have a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.